One model I come back to over and over is the thinking ladder by Tim Urban. So you're a human being, but if you had special goggles, you would see yourself in this way that Tim sees us. A normal human being, but with X-ray vision, you can see that there are actually two beings there instead of just the one human being. Let me explain. You have the primitive being who is part of our brain, the most primal part of our brain, the oldest part of our brain, sometimes called the lizard brain or the reptile brain. And you also have your higher self, your magnanimous self, the one who wants to be generous and open doors for people and help people out, the person that you are when you're your best self. And sometimes we think of ourselves as just one or just the other, but the reality is that we're both. It depends on where we're at in life, how we think in a particular instance. So here's the thinking ladder, and it goes all the way from your highest self at the top to varying degrees of your higher self and your primitive self having a fight. And then at the very bottom is just your primitive self. And you can see from this thinking ladder that it's a spectrum. Sometimes you're feeling really good and you're just really like feeling great and helping people out in the world. And then sometimes you're not feeling so great and you're operating more on those primal instincts. Doesn't make you a bad person. Maybe you just need a Snickers bar. Their marketing worked on me. Maybe you're just hungry. Maybe you're just tired. Wherever you're at in the day, it can vary, right? So that's the idea of the thinking ladder. So say you're in CVS, you're in some store and you're hungry and you haven't had a chance to go home and eat. And there's this voice inside of you, and it's that primitive voice that says, "Ooh, Skittles." Let's grab some Skittles. And your higher mind says, absolutely not. We will not have Skittles right now. Not going to do it. So now you see the mastery of Tim Urban, right? In that moment, I want the Skittles. Skittles equals survival. You're having this battle. Your primitive mind and your higher mind are having this battle. And for your primitive mind, Skittles are survival. It's colorful, it's nutrients, it's sugar. Let's keep going. And for your higher mind, you're like, no, just go home, eat the thing that we planned, right? We've all been there. So at different parts in our life, or different parts in our day, we're at different levels on this thinking ladder. And also as a society, we're on different levels of this thinking ladder. So he breaks it down into this is how you think, more higher mind or more primitive mind, and then this is what you think. When your higher mind is in control, when your higher mind has the edge, when your primitive mind has the edge, and then at the bottom, when your primitive mind is in control. This is all of us. So here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. And this is what I think about all the time, is that he at first acknowledges that we're all this. We're all on this spectrum. And then he talks about when you're thinking with just your higher mind, and then when you're thinking with half, and when you're thinking with half, and he labels each one of them. And this is what I think about all the time. So he says that when you're thinking with your higher mind, you're thinking like a scientist. And this is not to say that scientists are, just immaculate people, but the way that scientists think is with their higher mind. And what he means by that is that scientists, when they're being scientists, when they're trying to do their job, they're trying to be disproven. They're trying to think about, okay, this is what I think, but let me put it into a hypothesis form and let me test it out. And I would rather know the truth than be right, is how a scientist thinks. I think that it's this way, but let's do an experiment and let's isolate these variables and let's do the experiment over and over. Let's make it double blind in pursuit of the truth. If my opinion changes as I get more information, that's great. That's the mind of a scientist. Then when you go one rung down, you are at the point of a sports fan. So in the mind of a sports fan has a side. He or she has picked a side. You have a side that you want to win. But if your side won and it was obvious that the other side didn't even have a chance, it wouldn't be as fun of a game. What we want as a sports fan is we want both sides to have an equal shot at it, but we want our side to win. We want an equal playing field for our ideas versus the other person's ideas, but we would prefer if our team won, and we would really like for our team to win, but not in an unfair circumstance. A little bit lower on the thinking ladder, when the higher mind and the primitive mind are struggling a little bit more, and then the primitive mind is the one that kind of has an edge. The next level down is thinking like an attorney. And there's this big disclaimer. It's not that attorneys are bad. Attorneys are not bad, but we're thinking like an attorney because when an attorney is doing their job, an attorney is thinking about, okay, there are two sides, but I've been hired to represent one of the sides. So even if I think the other side is right, I am going to advance my side at all costs. Even if I think that my client murdered somebody and the other person is innocent and my client is guilty, I've been hired to fact find and find all the facts and to present all the facts about my side. And so I am not unbiased here. I've been hired to be biased. And when we're thinking like an attorney, even though no one's hired us, we have ideas that are precious to us, and we would rather those ideas be right. And even if we can see the other person's side or see the other person's perspective or agree with them in some way, we would rather advance our side, advance our thoughts. This is the types of conversations that you get in when you're thinking what you're going to say next instead of really thinking about what the other person's saying. We've all been there, right? So this is another layer of the thinking ladder. So this is when an attorney is working in their daily job, if the judge said anything else from the defense, actually, Your Honor, the prosecutor just made some excellent points. I guess my client is guilty after all. That would make for a really bad attorney. That's not what we've hired attorneys to do. So when we're thinking like an attorney, we are always seeing things from the perspective of our idea and trying to advance our idea. The final level on the thinking ladder really hits home for me because I didn't realize how much people think like this. And I think like this. The final level of the thinking ladder falls into unfalsifiable land. This is the land where everybody thinks the same thing, and there's no way to prove any differently. And we all live in harmony because we all believe the same way. And this happens in a lot of different places. He labels this level the zealot. And what he means by zealot is in this situation, you can't have ideas that go against the ideas of the culture. The culture is such that this is what we believe, and if you don't believe this, then you're not part of our group. That's the final level of the thinking ladder. It's the final level where that primitive mind is really into the Skittles. And if you're telling anybody any differently, we are the Skittles Club. And if you like something else, you can leave because we are all about the Skittles. Remember that the primitive mind is just about survival. But when the primitive mind is really forefront in our consciousness, things get really murky and it's harder for our higher mind to really see. So these are the different levels of the thinking ladder. And again, we as individuals are on all levels of the thinking ladder at different times of our day. When we're really sleepy, we might be a little lower. on the thinking ladder. When we are well fed and we feel like we're on fire at work, we might be a little bit higher on the thinking ladder. And as a group, we are also at different levels of this thinking ladder as well. This is all of the things that Tim talks about in his new book, which is coming out soon. And I highly recommend that you get it so that you can see all of the things that he talks about that is underneath this normal vision and X-ray vision concept. It's definitely a concept that has changed my life and changed the way that I think about things. And I highly recommend that you get the book so that you can also have this fully fleshed out in your mind. So, what do you think? Have you recognized yourself at any point on the thinking ladder or people around you at different points on the thinking ladder? Will you think about this next time that you have a disagreement with somebody else's ideas? I'd love to know. Leave me a note in the comments, and I'll see you next time.